Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Spanish Football Podcast. I'm Phil Kitromilides. I'm joined as ever by Dr. Sid Lowe to go through what's happened on Matchday 24 in La Liga EA Sports. Good morning, Sydney.
Good morning, Philip.
You've got that Monday morning feeling.
I know, I have, yeah. And all the more so because it's Champions League on Tuesday, which makes Monday doubly busy.
So Sydney is tired, frustrated, stressed.
Here's a question for you. Why does the Champions League do this thing of having long and short ties? So the team that plays on Tuesday then plays on Wednesday, and the team that plays on Wednesday then plays on Tuesday. Why do they do that?
I do not know, Sid.
It seems like a little bit of an unfair advantage for the teams that get the long tie, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Anyway, more on that later on in the week, I guess, over at patreon.com/TSFP, where we muse on all things related to Spanish football and not. This is what happened in La Liga this weekend. Friday night, so Elche and Osasuna play out a 0-0 draw. It was actually a really entertaining game. Elche should have won. They didn't, and a point apiece. Then on Saturday, Espanyol and Celta playing out another entertaining 2-2 draw. Plenty of drama in this one with late goals, a late equaliser, goals ruled out as well. It all happened at the RCDE Stadium. Sydney and I were on commentary for Getafe 2, Villarreal 1. Getafe are the team that will not go away. They're never going away. They're another fantastic result for them as they move away from the relegation zone. Villarreal continuing to fluctuate a little bit. Sevilla 1, Alaves 1. Sevilla playing the majority of this game with 10 men. And Alaves really should have probably got something more out of this game. Sevilla are in all sorts of trouble on and off the pitch. And Real Madrid producing a pretty strong performance against a much-changed Real Sociedad side at the Bernabeu. It finished 4-1 to Real Madrid. Vinicius Jr. getting a couple of goals. Then on Sunday, Sid, which has sort of contributed to his tired and frustrated state this morning, went up to Oviedo and back in the day to see Oviedo take the lead against Athletic Club, but end up losing by 2-1. And in the words of Sid on our private chat yesterday on WhatsApp, we are down. We're definitely down now. Rayo beat Atleti 3-0, unbelievably, in a game held at Leganes's Butarque Stadium, because Rayo Stadium is still an absolute shambles in terms of the pitch and other things as well. More on that in just a moment. Valencia won the Valencia derby away to Levante by 2-0. Massive result for them. It saved, I think, the manager Carlos Corberan's job, even though they desperately don't want to sack him. If they'd lost that, they wouldn't have had any other choice. But they won, and Levante are just fractionally better off than Oviedo at the bottom of the table and looking like they could well be heading back to the second division. And the Sunday night game saw Real Betis beat Mallorca by 2-1. A big performance from Anthony, who helped out in both of the Betis goals. A magnificent header from Vedat Murici. What a header it is to pull a goal back for Mallorca. But not enough for the Islanders. They drop into the relegation zone. Monday night football's a big one. Catalan derby, Girona against Barcelona from Montilivi. Now, if you haven't joined us at patreon.com/TSFP yet, why? Patrons get the Monday and Friday podcast without any adverts. There's a Q&A podcast, a bonus podcast every week, and there's the newsletter every week, the TSFP diary, the Discord. You can join us from just €4.75 a month. It's even cheaper if you get annual membership. Now, Sydney, let's start off by talking about what happened at the Bernabeu, because you were there to see Real Madrid go top of the table. They're top of the table at the time of recording, beating Real Sociedad by 4-1. There's various different things we can talk about in this performance from Real Madrid and from Real Sociedad as well. I think we should start off by talking about Trent, Sid, who started this game and looked really good. He's really good at passing.
He is very good at passing. Yeah. I think let's start with, and I'm not going to claim to have thought of this myself, although it was kind of an idea that was there. But Diarias did something I thought which was really, really effective, which was to show us a photograph of the pitch just before the first goal. And the most amazing thing about it, I think, is if you look at that photograph of the pitch just before the first goal, with the ball at the foot of Trent Alexander-Arnold, who's in a deep right-sided position, there's nothing on. Like, it's not like he provides the pass that is there, the cross that's there, the opportunity is opening for him. He's the one that makes the opportunity even happen. It's the quality of the pass is so good. It's not that it's really on at all. The delivery is absolutely perfect. Gonzalo after the game used that lovely Spanish word. He called it a caramelo, a sweetie, that all he had to do as a striker was gobble it up. It was that easy. Actually, for what it's worth, I don't think it was that easy. And
quite that easy, yeah.
It's a slightly unusual finish, actually. He kind of brushes it. Maybe a tad fortunate. I don't know if I'm being unfair to say that, with the sort of the underside of his foot, and it goes in the corner. But it's a brilliant delivery from Trent. And I thought what we saw from Real Madrid and from Trent Alexander-Arnold is how he can provide really seemingly simple solutions from almost nowhere. And it's something that was picked up on a lot. And I like the way that it was framed by a handful of the papers in Spain. Actually, this idea that it just comes. It's not even part of the pattern of play, really. It's one delivery breaks everything. It breaks down everything. So again, to go back to that photograph, you look at it and everyone seems to be in the right place. It's not like there's a gap that's there. It's not like there's anyone out of position. It's just that the quality of the pass is so good that it's a bit like it was with Beckham, which is that you can deliver a ball from a very deep position. You don't need to have necessarily advanced up the pitch to be able to put the ball in a place that means you basically take out the entire game. And you take out the whole of the opposition. And I think that's where, and there'll be a lot of our listeners who watched plenty of Trent playing for Liverpool, watched plenty of Premier League, and be saying, well, yes, of course. But of course, we've been waiting for this at Real Madrid because he's had injuries. It was the first time he'd started since San Mamés, which I think is 73 days ago. He'd had 2 muscular injuries this season. He played only just over 15% of the minutes for Real Madrid this year, and he hadn't been able to impose himself. Now, there's some caveats in this, and I actually think there's some caveats for the whole of the analysis of this Real Madrid performance. And one of them actually comes with something that Arbeloa said. He said, after the game, Arbeloa said, we talked to him about this. With someone like Gonzalo in the area, we talked about the importance of those long deliveries. We talked about the importance of crossing into the box and having someone to reach there. And of course, the caveat here is most of the time Gonzalo won't be there. And Gonzalo makes the kind of movements that are really useful for a player like Trent in a way that in truth Mbappe doesn't.
Gonzalo hasn't scored with Mbappe in the team.
Yeah, what is it? No goals in something like 540 minutes, roughly, and I think it's 11 goals in the 800 minutes without Mbappe. Now, there's a couple of things to say about that. Number one is, well, yeah, obviously, because when he comes on and Mbappe is on the pitch, he's been tended to be shunted out wide right, which doesn't make any sense anyway, by the way, although he has played some of his career there. And actually, it was the Spanish national team at under 17 level, I think, or maybe under 18, that decided to put him in the middle, having previously watched him play on the right-hand side a lot. But I think that is significant, not so much in this game in terms of undermining this performance from Gonzalo or this performance from Trent, but in terms of the usefulness of what Trent does when there's a different type of striker in front of him. And it is kind of mad, this, but allow me to say it and allow me to be the kind of the Grinch in this scenario. And you go, wow, Real Madrid scored 4 despite Mbappe not being there. Yeah, the last time he wasn't there, they scored 5. And there is that question about how all these pieces fit together and how you construct it. And it seems absolutely nuts.
Jude Bellingham wasn't there as well.
And it seems absolutely nuts in a way for me to be seemingly questioning a player who scored 38 goals this season and saying that they're better without him. Now, I'm not saying they're better without him. They absolutely are not better without Mbappe. But there are some questions about how this all fits together. And in particular, in the light of the performance of Trent and having the right kind of people in front of him. I also thought it was very interesting what Fede Valverde said about how much happier he was with Trent in the side, how he said something really, really striking to me. And I think it's important. So he said, I can't remember the exact words, but essentially what he said was, I like having the game in front of me with a space to run into. And we know that's true. And I think what we saw there, in truth, was Fede kind of admitting that he's not a central midfielder.
He also kind of admitted that the whistles sort of worked.
Yes, and I personally agree with that.
We kind of needed that. Needed that.
He said the phrase he used was, "We've swallowed a lot of shit over the last few weeks, and we deserved it."
Yeah.
And it was good for us, and it made us realize that we had to get our heads down and we had to mature and we had to work. And I actually think there's a couple of elements in which he's probably right. Now, again, all of this I have to caveat by saying I think there's a risk of getting overexcited about this performance and overexcited about Madrid's current position, although I understand it because of where they've come from, because of how few good performances have been this year, and because they're now top of the table.
league wins.
Exactly. Right. Well, here's the point. You know what? In a way, that 8 consecutive league wins is a reason to question this, because we've had 8 consecutive league wins. That's 8. So that goes back a long way. That includes Xabi Alonso. And yet we were saying how rubbish it was. And yet this run isn't just now. This isn't a sudden improvement. This was happening anyway. Yeah. And there is that doubt about the level of La Liga, and that doubt about what the 8 consecutive wins in the league really mean. And so I think that's part of it. But the thing about the whistling, I actually think that the whistling probably was useful. And I do think that Fede Valverde has got a point. And I think there's a couple of things that happened. I think the first one is that it exposed the players. And it was a wake-up call. And it said, right, these guys, the fans, are not impressed with you, not impressed with how you've played, but also they're not impressed because they see you as responsible for having got rid of your manager. So don't think you can get rid of another one. And in particular, obviously, the other one has come in and tried to do the things that they want to do and has tried to relate to the dressing room before all the other things. It's not to say that's the only thing Lowe has done, but the fundamental first thing was, I get this dressing room happy again. In particular, Vinicius, but one or two others as well. I get them happy. I get them liberated. I get them feeling okay. But I also think that the responsibility laid upon them by the fans was significant. It said, you've got nowhere to hide anymore. There's another thing that I think it did, just very briefly, sorry, is to say that I think that those whistles and that game against Levante, when we talked about the whistles and we talked about how the players have kind of made it up to them and all the rest of it, and you know, those celebrations with the fans, when Vinicius was kind of when Vinicius scored, and they said, this is, I don't think that had fixed anything. What I think it had done is it had actually created a togetherness amongst the players. And I think there's an element, and they will never ever say this, so not publicly, I think there was an element of the players coming together and saying, it's us against these bastards. I really do think there's an element of that as well.
The fans?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
It bounds them. It binds them together, if you sort of mean, as being looked upon by the fans badly.
Let's briefly just be remiss of us not to mention that 2 of the goals that Real Madrid scored were penalties. Regular listen to the podcast will know that we don't like to talk about the referee too much. This is actually the first season that we're sticking all the podcasts on YouTube, and it's opened us up to a whole new avenue of comments and abuse from people who think that we are insanely biased one way or another. But that's fine. That's fine. This is what I think we should mention about the penalties. I will caveat anything that we further say by saying that the manager of Real Sociedad, Rino Matarazzo, after the game said for both penalties there's contact for both penalties, and that's no reason for the VAR to intervene.
I think he's wrong.
I think the first one is a penalty that can be given. I don't think it is a penalty, but I think it's something that can be given and usually is. And if you think it's a penalty, then I don't think the VAR will ever overturn that. The second one is a very obvious dive, which should not have been given. But there we go. Right. I don't want to dwell too much on this, but
I don't. But I also do very briefly. And I also do very briefly because I think
you want to talk about more generally in the concept of what is being given as a penalty.
This is what I always,
not just Real Madrid,
always talk about, the conceptualization of it. And I think Matarazzo is wrong, but I also think he's right. And the reason I say that is because he's right that when there is contact, the VAR just doesn't intervene. And I think that's wrong. As a protocol premise, I think it's wrong that we don't intervene because there's contact. That is total bullshit. The idea that contact means that's it. We can't intervene. Why can't you? Or why can't you at least say to the referee, have a look if you want? Because, because we think it might not be. Because I think that there's a mate of mine sent me a message, which actually defines it really well. And it's what I've been saying for a long time. But I quite liked the simplicity with which he put it. And he said, there's contact, ? In my day, there used to have to be a foul.
Yes. Let's talk about Real Sociedad, who are coming off the back of a big win in the Copa del Rey against Atletico midweek. They made a number of changes. I mean, they didn't actually play that badly in this game.
No. And look, a minute ago, I said I didn't want to be the Grinch but this is where I want to caveat the good performance from Real Madrid. and the optimism from Real Madrid. And Real Madrid beating Real Sociedad 4-1 obviously is significant, but 4-1 comes with a series of caveats. One of them is the one you've just mentioned. 2 of the 4 are penalties. And 2 of the 4, I think, are ropey penalties. And I agree with you, the first one can be given, but the second one absolutely shouldn't. But I also think that Madrid actually didn't create very much more than what they scored. I think the context of this is a Real Sociedad side who, as you say, came off the back of the Copa del Rey game, was absolutely exhausted, made a lot of changes, had injuries as well, and suspensions, the Bryce Mendes suspension. And let's talk about the conceptual thing again, shall we? It's ludicrous that he was suspended for 2 games, but it meant that he missed this. Kubo is out injured. I did a little list on Saturday of 5 players who, certainly since Matarazzo has been there, would be starters, didn't start. Players who had 75 starts between them this season. So we're not talking about, nobodies. We're talking about a big chunk of their team taken out. I think we're talking about a team that has that penalty given against them to make it 2-1. Is a bit weak. In fact, I think very weak in the Valverde goal at 3-1. And then any chance of a comeback is taken away by the 4th penalty. It's an unusual performance from Madrid in that it was comfortable all the way through and there was consistency. And I think that's what's positive. But I think Real Sociedad, it was kind of a game too far for them, a game too soon after Copa del Rey. I don't think it undermines too badly what they've done so far. And the manager said, there are things we will learn from this. And he talked in really, again, and I really admire this, really good depth about some of the things they did, some of the mechanics of what they did wrong and what they have to learn.
First defeat for Rino Matarazzo in his 10th game in charge of Real Sociedad.
Now, Philip, this is the good bit of the show where I tell you that this episode is brought to you by Saily.
Sydney, you travel a lot for work, don't you? And I think you might use your phone more than anyone else I know.
Yeah, that's probably true.
What if I told you, Sid, there's an app that means almost wherever you are in the world, you'll never be without internet connection and never have to worry about roaming fees?
I am listening, Phil.
It's called Saily, Sydney, and it takes all the hassle out of using your phone when you're abroad. Saily offer affordable eSIM data plans in over 200 destinations. With a Saily eSIM, you'll always have a connection when you need it.
Okay, but imagine that I'm not very good with technology. I mean, just imagine it. It's not unusual. Can I actually deal with this? Is it difficult to use?
I mean, even for you, Sid, even for you and your limited technological capabilities, it's pretty simple. Okay. You basically just download the app before you go, you choose your data plan, and here's the important bit. You use your TSFP code to get 15% off. And after that, you follow the quick and simple instructions to install the eSIM on your phone. And when you land, you're good to go. So there's no more needing to worry about sorting data after you land, which is the last thing you want after a flight.
Now, let me guess, did producer Al use this at the Club World Cup last summer?
He literally did, and he said it worked very well.
Okay.
It's easy to use. You save time and hassle. You don't have to worry about buying a local SIM or getting scammed. It's secure as well, and it's compatible with iOS or Android. If you have any issues, there's also 24/7 chat support.
Okay, so what do I have to do? And probably more importantly, what do TSFP listeners need to do, Phil?
Download Saily in your app store. That's SAILY. And use our code TSFP at checkout to get an exclusive 15% off your first purchase. The details are in the podcast episode description box, or you can find them at saily.com/TSFP. So let's talk about some other matches that took place this weekend, not least the one that happened yesterday at Butarque, Rayo 3, Atletico Madrid 0. Obviously, this game taking place at the Estadio Municipal de Butarque in Leganés, because the Estadio de Vallecas, the pitch, which was deemed unusable on, when was it actually called off? Thursday evening, was
Thursday.
it?
And that was one of the things that Inigo Perez was unhappy about. He said they could have given them a little bit more time.
Yes. They didn't, though, and the game was played at Butarque, much to the displeasure and anger at for the majority of Rayo fans. There was a big protest outside the stadium and down the main thoroughfares in Vallecas just before the game kicked off in Leganés. 5,300 was the official capacity. Well, it's not the capacity, the official attendance at this game. The capacity at Butarque is about 14,000, so it looked obviously awful to have an empty stadium. I didn't go. I am a Rayo Vallecano season ticket holder, as many listeners will know. I decided to boycott this game, as most season ticket holders decided to, because it's just not the way forward. It's also just not part of the experience of watching Rayo is going to Vallecas. That is one of the fundamental parts of being in that stadium, feeling the sense of community, feeling the sense of communion with the players. And that's a huge part of the enjoyment. So if you go and take them to Leganés for a home game, it is not the same. And one of the guys I go with sent me a message, the guy who I've got the season ticket with sit next to him. He said, any regrets at not going? And I said, no, absolutely not. I sat at home, I watched it, I very much enjoyed it, but going to Leganés is just a completely different experience, quite apart from the fact that we wanted to send a message to the absolutely catastrophic president that his management of the club is just beyond disastrous and offensively bad to everybody involved with the club and the rest of the league as well, because it impacts on the rest of the league. Just ask Real Oviedo, who had their game cancelled and postponed last week because the pitch wasn't good enough at Vallecas. So I'm delighted Rayo won. Absolutely, I thought it was a brilliant performance from them under insane circumstances. All this stuff going on off the pitch. They had to train at Getafe's training ground the day before because the pitch at their training ground wasn't up to scratch either. There's been so much noise, so much questions. They are so displeased, the players, with how the club are treating them, and yet they come out and put this performance in, Sid. I mean, it's just extraordinary.
It is. It really is. And I feel like I want to start at the end, and I want to start at the perfect conclusion from Inigo Perez, which is that post-game, he said, this was, in sporting terms, a brilliant performance. In sporting terms, very happy. He said, but this wasn't a special day. This wasn't a happy day.
No.
This is a bitter day, and it's a sad day. And I think he's right. And I think he's right to make that point. It is extraordinary. I mean, Rayo basically break all the rules. All the things that you could do to ruin a team, they do them. And somehow that team keeps on responding. Everything you could do. As you've said, they're playing at Leganés. They're training at Getafe. Their pitch is bad at the training ground. Their pitch is bad at the stadium. They've got a manager who admitted that he was about to walk out before the Lech Poznan game. You've got a president that absolutely everybody hates. You've got a club with no investment. You've got fans who are furious. You've got fans who, on this occasion, don't look at it and think, "Okay, this is bad. This is one-off, but the team needs our support." They think, "No, we absolutely have to take a stand." In fact, I'll be honest with you, Phil. I think over 5,000 fans at the ground is disappointingly high.
It is.
I was disappointed by how many fans went, to be honest, but I can understand it. And there've been plenty of interviews on television and radio with supporters there going, I really didn't know what to do. I thought about it for a long time. I decided in the end that the bottom line is that the players need our support, that we're in trouble near the bottom of the table. And maybe had this been a mid-table game against, say, Real Oviedo, then you might have only got 1,000 people there. But instead you get 5,000. Yeah. I just don't know. I just don't know whether that would have made a difference. And some fans would have had that view on it. And of course, it's difficult for. I understand why fans went. I wish they hadn't, but I understand why fans went. And it's just amazing. I mean, it really is amazing. There's one thing though, which is I just wonder if at some level the shambles is part of what makes them good. That again, you know what I was saying about the Real Madrid fans whistling the players and it creating a kind of a sense of collective union against this sort of this outside pressure. I wonder if sometimes Rayo have a better collective spirit because it's so bad, because they're aware of what they're up against, because it brings them together.
Like working out at Rayo, literally the club as an entity and coaching staff at the stage, it has like the fewest people working there of any club by like a huge difference. So they're just working on a budget, on like a sort of logistic level, on a technical level. Everything is done on the most minuscule, tight level possible. I think not. I think if there was a bit more,
I think the structural part of it obviously undermines them.
Yeah,
I just wonder if there's a little bit that I'm not saying they benefit as a net gain, but within the structural flaw, within the structural losses, if you sort of mean, if there's one little bit that brings them together.
Okay, well, I was delighted that Rayo won, but it's true. It was sort of disgraceful episode, and hopefully it doesn't get repeated, but it almost certainly will at some point. We should talk about the actual football. Atletico Madrid making 9 changes to the side that had beaten Barcelona so comprehensively on Thursday night in the Copa del Rey 4-0. He's getting quite a lot of sticks, Simeone, for making 9 changes, but the team that he puts out, it's a strong team. It's full of expensive international players. He rests starters, but you look at that starting 11, Sid, and it's got Sorlo in it, it's got Nico Gonzalez in it, it's got Almada in it, it's got Johnny Cardoso and Mendoza, the 2 centre-backs, Lenglet and Jimenez. I mean, it's got Jan Oblak, who comes back into the team. It's a strong starting 11, and they look like they could not be less interested in this game. Obviously, it comes after for a Champions League playoff in Belgium in midweek, which is massive for them. They just seemed so disinterested, lost all the duels. It was really just meh. We're not interested.
Yeah. I mean, there's a great portrait, isn't there, of that sort of passivity, and that's on the goal when Rayo does about 75 step overs as he's coming in on the right. It's really quite funny, isn't it? You kind of go, wee, lollipop, lollipop for like what feels like about 5 minutes. Like, it really does feel like a sort of a parody. And I think it's Lenglet. I'm not sure. There's 2 defenders. One of them's Lenglet. I'm not sure who the other one is. And they're just sort of looking at him. Going, oh, whatever. And it's really quite bizarre. And Simeone denied it post-game, but Oblak said you can't choose your games. And it feels like we're choosing our games. Now, I think at some subconscious level, I think that's entirely right. And I think it's natural that it's right. And I also don't think it's about the players thinking, I'll bin this off. It's about the manager making the changes. Now, do not read that as a criticism. I think you have to make the changes. You've played the game against Barcelona this week. You're
less
going
than 72 hours.
Exactly. You're going into for the 3rd time in a row, by the way, not getting 72 hours rest. Last year, Real Madrid threatened not to play again if that happened again. Ancelotti did that press conference in which he said that. They go into the Champions League in midweek. They go into the Champions League again in the midweek after that. And in the midweek after that, they go into the second leg of the Copa del Rey against Barcelona with the chance to reach a Copa del Rey final for the first time in 13 years. And with the chance, and I would say the obligation, to get through to the next round of the Champions League in a league title race, which has already gone. So I think it's absolutely 100% right thing to do what they did. Now, I think what that does, of course, is it's not so much that it puts worse players on the pitch. I think it's what it does is it kind of implicitly says, yeah, we know that this isn't our thing. Now, that said, in a way, I actually think that's a reason to make changes, because what you're doing is you're saying to players who aren't going to get a chance or haven't been getting a chance, you know what, if you really prove something, maybe you get to play midweek. Maybe you get to play in the second leg against Barcelona. You get to play against Bruges. And so there should have been some motivation there, but there just wasn't.
No.
I'm very reluctant to ever fall into the trap of just saying, they just didn't care. But to be perfectly honest with you, I just think they didn't care.
It was very difficult to take any other conclusion from that performance. That they're watching it, they really didn't care, and Rayo absolutely did care, and they were worthy winners. Before we go, Sid, a quick mention on that game that we did together. Getafe beating Villarreal by 2-1. Getafe, good value for this win, and Villarreal really, again, didn't really turn up at this one.
No, they didn't at all, and Getafe were good value for it. I wouldn't say that Getafe created loads, but they were the better side. They had more of the game. They made more happen. The introduction of the 2 forwards has been really, I think, fantastically important for them. Has made an immediate difference, and they haven't lost since the transfer window, when Bordalas has been vindicated a little bit because he kept saying we absolutely need these signings. I should add here, seeing as we said we don't talk about referees, but I like to talk about them conceptually. I don't think you can give a penalty for what they gave a penalty for. I think it's absurd, and I think time and time again games are being decided by bureaucratic bullshit, and it's tiresome, really, really tiresome. And it's not tiresome for me because of a perceived benefiting of certain clubs over other clubs. It's tiresome for me because I'm seeing that games are almost incidental. It's decisions that are deciding games.
Renato Vega judged to have slightly tugged Luis Vasquez to give a penalty away.
And you see the movement of Vasquez, the fact that Renato Vega has a bit of his shirt, and he does, and I can't deny that. I absolutely can't deny it. And you show a still image, there it is, as a shirt being pulled. It makes literally no difference to him. If anything, in fact, the tug of the shirt should pull him the other way from the way that he goes. But anyway, that's by the by. Getafe, very impressive. Before we go, I do want to add one thing, Phil. We haven't really mentioned. I think that the goal that gives Valencia the lead in the Valencia derby, which is extraordinary, by the way, the derby and the fallout at the end of it is quite something as well. I think it's the best goal we've seen all season. I think it's the best goal we will see all season. Unbelievable from Ramazani.
I mean, it is a very, very, very good goal.
It's the whole move. It's not just the finish.
Yeah,
it frustrates me. In fact, I saw a replay of it last night on Spanish TV, and it really, really annoyed me. I'm sorry to go on about these kind of things, but it really annoyed me because a replay of it basically showed the final pass and the finish, which is outrageously good, by the way.
Yeah.
Partly because he miscontrols the first touch and the ball sits up in the air, and then he takes it in the air and smashes it into the net. Maybe with a slight slice. I think he might actually catch it on the ankle a little bit. I think but it looks brilliant. But what frustrated me was what makes that goal so amazing is what Javi Guerra does at the very start of it on the edge of his own penalty area. And it really pisses me off that we have this kind of short-sighted thing that a great goal now is just the guy that whacks it into the top corner. No, a truly great goal is built, and that goal was built.
That goal was built and dispatched by Largi Ramazani, who
then
does
did an amazing celebration.
Yes, and also at the end, Eray Chomert winding up, I think, the home fans. He goes over to the Valencia away supporters. This is the derby, by the way, Cross City derby, Levante Valencia. They've won, and he gets a corner flag. And does he put a Valencia shirt on the corner flag and starts waving it?
Flag.
Yeah, turn it into a Valencia flag and starts waving it. And obviously, that does not go down well with anyone associated with Levante.
And they start throwing bottles at him. Plastic bottles. One of them actually does hit him in the face as he's going off the pitch at the end, which obviously there's no excuse for that. I think he was very daft. I can understand that he probably didn't see it as, he probably didn't think of it as I am covering a Levante flag. He probably thought, there's my fans. I'm going to use a flag and I want it to be a Valencia one, so I'll put a shirt on it. I think it was very stupid, but I'm not sure it was as malicious as it's been made out to be honest. But yes, I mean, not the cleverest thing to do.
Yeah, not the cleverest thing to do. Don't do that. There's lots of other stuff we didn't talk about. Send us questions and we'll answer them on tomorrow's Q&A podcast. Before we go in the Segunda, Castellón beat Depor 2-0 to go a point clear at the top of the table. Sid did a very interesting interview with their owner, Bob Vulgaris, last year. Seek it out and read it because it's incredible the job that's been done there. In second place, it's Racing, who lost 2-1 at Eibar. In third, it's Almeria, who won 3-2 against Andorra. Elsewhere, Granada beat Valladolid 5-1. Valladolid are 19th in the relegation zone and have sacked yet another manager. That's it for today's edition of TSFP. Like I said, we're over at patreon.com/TSFP for the rest of the week. Come and join us, €4.75 a month. Loads of content there, almost daily. So come and join us. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. We'll be back on Friday for the preview pod. So we'll see you then. Adios.
Cheerio.